Well, Mr. President-elect and former President,
Thank you.
Donald, congratulations.
Thank you very much.
And looking forward to having like we said, a smooth transition. Do everything we can to make sure you're accommodated, what you need. And we're going to get a chance to talk about some of that today. So
Good.
welcome
Thank you
back.
very much. And thank you very much. And politics is tough, and it's in many cases not a very nice world, but it is a nice world today, and I appreciate very much a transition that's so smooth. It'll be as smooth as it can get, and I very much appreciate that, Jim.
You're welcome. Thank you all.
So there are a lot of things to gather in those few moments, which is why it's important to see all of them. We hadn't heard from Biden. We took it so quickly. So you've got to see that exchange between two people who really were in quite the epic political battle. Not just 4 years ago in 2020, but fast forward up until June 27th and that debate that basically destroyed Joe Biden's opportunity to stay atop the ticket for the Democratic Party. And when you hear the president-elect say politics is tough, and after that's over, it can be a nice world. We're in a nice world today. Martha, what goes through your mind when you hear that?
Well, first of all, that this is very short.
Right?
They brought in former President Trump. It appears to me that the White House wanted this to be as tight a moment as humanly possible.
Why do you think that is?
Well, gracious invitation, obviously, from Joe Biden. Joe Biden is a career, lifelong politician. These two men could not be more different. Donald Trump has spent his entire life in business, and then he became president and learned the ropes. Joe Biden has been in Washington since he was 28 years old. So these two men, while they are in the same ballpark of age, they are light years apart in so many ways. But I think they wanted this to be tight, Harris. I don't think they wanted to give the incoming president the opportunity to sort of take this moment over. But it was a cordial moment between these two men, and this is what I think America wants to see. I thought, for me, the most sort of poignant moment was when Biden looked at Trump and said, "Welcome back."
Yeah. Bill.
It's quite a moment. I agree with you, Martha. I wrote that down as well. By the way, that fire behind them is ripping. And I don't know. I don't know if the meeting they're about to have will be as warm as that fire between the two men, but we'll find out momentarily. When he met with Barack Obama, the meeting went 90 minutes. Who's to say how long this goes? I thought what Jake Sullivan said on CBS on Sunday was kind of interesting. He said, we want to know what his ideas are. I don't think Donald Trump is the kind of guy who wants to show his hand. He's got fires that he wants to put out all over the world.
Literal ones.
Yeah, and some of these cabinet positions, not necessarily cabinet, but the people on his team, I think are very interesting. You know, Fox Digital reported 2 hours ago, they broke the news that there will be a Ukraine envoy to try and settle that matter. And that's going to be massively complicated, by the way.
Do you think that came up or will come up as these two men talk?
I imagine it will. I mean, that would be my guess. But again, I don't think Trump's the kind of guy that wants to show his hand on this. Now, I think with regard to President Biden, he wants Trump to know what they're doing now. And there's a great piece in the Wall Street Journal this morning. It lays out how complicated this is to peel away the different factions, whether it's Putin, whether it's Iran, whether it's the North Koreans with upwards of 10 to 15,000 troops ready to join that battle. And then you've got Zelensky and whether or not he would take a deal. So that's massively complicated. I think the other thing, Stephen Witkoff is a man that most Americans don't know. He's a highly successful and very accomplished individual. He's been really good friends with Donald Trump going back 30 years. He's going to be the Middle East envoy. There is a possibility, you know, as you know, this peace deal that was moving forward between the Saudis and the Israelis that was blown up on October 7th after Hamas, you know, broke through the fence and went into Israel. That has a chance of coming back. And that has a chance of coming back on track. And if it does, that entire region has the potential to change.
So that's so interesting because we have seen reports recently of Jared Kushner coming back into the picture a little bit. And of course, the Abraham Accords were so monumental. It's one of the few areas that Biden didn't touch, actually, in terms of Trump policy. I think he gets where we are in the world. You notice that he's not going to expire, as lack of a better term, the weapons money that we're giving them and the accoutrement that goes with that, actual weapons to Israel. I mean, that calendar has slowed down now under Biden's watch. Martha, what's your quick thought?
Well, I'm just thinking about the Secretary of State spokesperson saying, well, we're not going to basically publicly admonish Israel yet. Right? We're not going to cut off the weapons supply yet. We're watching what happens. We're watching whether or not enough aid flows into Gaza. The tone has shifted dramatically with the people who have been appointed. You see, Mike Huckabee will be the ambassador to Israel. This is a team that is very Israel strength focused. We know that Netanyahu and Trump have had at least 3 conversations. This tone has completely changed. My guess, former President Trump loves to interact with people. He loves to talk to people. I think this meeting will be beefy in that response. But I don't think they're going to dig a lot into the future policy.
Well, and Bill made a good point. John, I'll come to you next. I mean, Trump isn't going to show his hand. However, he did a bit when he was running to the American people, to voters. And it may be part and parcel for the support that he got from the Jewish community. You cannot ignore the pickup of Jewish voters in this country, given all of the anti-Semitic behaviors, riots, protests, death threats, actual violence. I mean, it has been quite the last 6 months to a year. So it makes sense for him to make that public during the campaign, what he would do. He was going to reach out, talk with leaders before he became the president in January. Just your thoughts and reporting on that. I know you were in Israel not too long ago.
Yeah, and I think that the appointment of Mike Huckabee, or at least the nomination of Mike Huckabee to be the U.S. ambassador to Israel, is a brilliant move on the president's part. Huckabee, very dedicated to Israel. Israel loves Huckabee, and I think that will facilitate a very constructive dialogue between the United States and Israel. Don't forget, as you pointed out, the president vowed that he would end the Ukraine war before he took office. So we'll see what he does on that front. We'll see what his conversations with Vladimir Putin might lead to. This idea of maybe ending the war in the Middle East in a fairly short time period, I think, is one that will go over well. A friend of mine lives in Beirut. She told me that all the women in Lebanon are crushing over the choice of Pete Hegseth for defense secretary. Pete, of course, is a very good-looking fella, and they like his military record, but they also think that he will be part of this idea of peace through strength. Let me come back also to the point that I was making earlier, that Harold also alluded to, about the effectiveness of a Trump second term. Don't forget, literally, from the moment he took office on January 20th, 2017, he was under siege. He was under siege from Democrats. He was under siege from the media. At every turn, the wolves were at the door. Over the past 4 years, and I never meant to say that he was not working, because he was working every day. He was just out of office. But over the last 4 years, he's really come to realize and identify where the traps are, where the pitfalls are in the presidency, and how to avoid them. And I think just by virtue of the cabinet picks that we have seen so far, Trump learned a lot from his first administration, and I think that he won't be as under siege as he would have been.
Well, we shall see. I mean, Judge Juan Merchan may have something to say about that. I mean, we thought we were going to get a decision this week in the case that has a sentencing date for November 26th. Now, that date moves off the calendar, and we're waiting for November 19th to see if that conviction will stay, and there will be sentencing with that. I mean, we're still watching lawfare against this president-elect. It's an interesting spot to be in.
Hey everyone, I'm Emily Campagno. Catch me and my co-hosts Harris Faulkner and Kaylee McEnany on Outnumbered every weekday at 12 p.m. Eastern, or set your DVR. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page for daily highlights.